Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined with the amazing Levi Burzlaff-Luett. How you doing today, man?
I'm great. How are you?
I am very well. It's amazing to have you here. You host a podcast that I'm a huge fan of because of the topic of the podcast. So before we talk about why you're here, I want the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You are the host of the Talking Tremors podcast, where you guys talk about, obviously, Dune and Footloose. I mean, what else would you talk about on the Talking Tremors podcast?
The Kevin Bacon staples, Dune and Footloose, baby.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but you yourself have made 2 Tremors films, and you organized the first ever Tremors Fest. So, what was it like making these Tremors films, and where can people see those?
Honestly, absolutely surreal. We were just talking before we started how Ken made his own movie, and there's so much that you learn that first time. That first time you're doing it, man, you will make mistakes, and you're just like, oh man, and you just gotta be proud of it, no matter what kind of a thing. And I actually sent the first one that we did. I sent it to Michael Gross, and that was actually where I first started contacting Michael, and he was like, actually, I really like that. It reminded me of like when I was a kid growing up in Fort Madison, Iowa, and running through the cornfields at my grandparents' house. And I'm just like, I'm okay. I'm good with this. But then, and it's just like I said, there's all the problems that happen with it. But I was really proud of it. But I was like, I want to make a second one, and I got into it. And I actually made this is my little baby graboid.
That's sick.
I love my practical effects. That's the whole fun of it. And then I got a friend in on it. I got more people in on it. The first one is just me. And then I was like, I have a trilogy planned. And so like the first one's just me. The second one, I kind of add in one other person as like the Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward sidekicky thing, like they're back and forth. And then the third one is where I'm just going to go all out, and I'm going to bring the whole town and everybody that I can into it. And we're just going to, everything that I learned with those first 2, I know that I'll slam it for the third one.
Right. And Tremors 3 is my favorite. I just want to throw that out there for everybody watching. So can't wait for the third installment of yours as well.
I forgot to say the names of you can find them. So there's the Tremors Sagas YouTube page, which if you're a fan of Tremors, go there, subscribe. That's where we host my podcast off of. But the names of the first movie is called Tremors Far Afield, because it takes place in a cornfield. And then the second one is Tremors Hunting Ground, because we're literally hunting the ground. It's really stupid, but I love it.
No, and the good thing is you guys don't have to go far for that, because I have all of Levi's links down in the description. So make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're checking out the podcast. Make sure you're following him on social media as well, so you can become a part of his life. Now, in real life, you do work on a farm in Iowa. You live with your wife, 15 years, and you work construction to pay for opening a community game room in your hometown, which that is so fucking dope. Like, when I was young, man, the arcade, we had an arcade in our town called Aladdin's Palace, and that kept me out of so much trouble. You know what I mean? Like going there, just hanging out, being at the game room, being at the arcade was just so special to me as a kid. So what gives you the drive to want to give that back to the kids in your area?
Honestly, it's what you just said right there. And me and my dad and my wife, we bought this building, this really dilapidated building downtown. And because we work construction, we know how to do that. We've been fixing it up for about it'll be 3 years in February. And I'm not, this is no shade on like people who drink alcohol or anything, but when the only thing fun to do in your town is like bars, that's not good enough for everybody. And it was what you just said about like having a place for kids and adults too to go. And it's a sense of community and like hanging out. And I have these 5 nephews, and it's so much fun to teach them how to play games. Like when you growing up and playing Mario, and actually I have Donkey Kong 64 over here that they love playing all the time, and then even like teaching them how to play pinball. They didn't know what a pinball machine was, and just it's so cool as an adult being like, oh, hey little Timmy Tommy, this is like, no, this is what you do, and like play, like this is how you play. And it fosters this great sense of community. Like everybody in town is like, it's been 3 years of work, and everyone's like, when are you opening? We want in on this, and we want to go now. And we're like, it's like it's been a while, but we're gonna be here for the next 20 or 30 years. Like, this is a plan. We're not the
Right.
goal is not to make money with it. Like, people are always like, oh, you can just make, like, are you gonna do like quarters and tickets? It's like, no. It's like $5, $10, $15 to come in, and you get to play all day. You can leave and go get something and come back and play all day. And just as a way, like I said, it's a community thing. Of course, we'll make whatever money we need to stay open, but it is for everybody. That's my, I'm working on it. I'm working on it, man. We're going.
No, and it's amazing because, like I said, you talk about bars and stuff, like, especially when you have the kids that are 16, 17, 18, 19, you can't just go to the bar and hang out and have beers and chill with your friends. And like I said, those community areas, when I was a kid, I had the older kids that were teaching me Mortal Kombat, the older kids that were teaching me skee ball. We would go up and play against each other and, air hockey and shit like that. So, some of my good friends as a kid are kids I met at the arcade that would be there every Friday. Every single week I would tell my grandma, like, Grandma, I broke my pencils at school. I need more pencils. And she'd give me $1, and that dollar every single week would go towards Aladdin's Palace, like every single week. And then I'd go to school and like trade wrestling action figures for money and like trade Pokemon cards for money and Pogs, trade them for money just so I could go to Aladdin's Palace at the end of the week and, play the fucking Ninja Turtles game that was impossible to beat, or, the Simpsons game, that was some of my favorite memories, being not with that weren't at the video store or the baseball card shop. It was always Aladdin's Palace, man. Those were the three places I hung out at the most. So,
well, that's what Game On is going to be. It's a great name. Game On. It's a motto. Game on, man. Game on with your life. Just keep gaming on, dude.
Yep. That's for me, that's Wayne's World. Car. Game on.
Game on, man.
Fucking legit, man. So, Levi, I don't think this is going to come as a shock to anybody, but you're a Tremors fan.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. What?
So this is the perfect segue now. We know what you got coming up here in the future with Game On, and what you're doing now with the podcast. But here for a minute, Levi, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Levi, what a shocker. The first horror movie you watched was
Tremors 2 Aftershocks. I have to say, I looked in my memory really hard to find a non-Tremors movie that started, and it was that fucking movie, man. I did. I wasn't trying to keep it just Tremors. I was like, damn, no, that was where this all started, like, legitimately, like, as a kid.
And it is an amazing movie. And like I said, the first 3 movies in this franchise, I think, are absolutely phenomenal. I know that, a lot of the other movies have a lot of cult following, and I do like a lot of the later films. I would always watch these movies anytime they come out. They could release 50 of them in the next 50 years, and I'll watch every single one of them. I'm a huge fan of the franchise. But do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen Tremors 2?
So I finally was able to pinpoint it down because of this podcast. I think I was 5, either 5 or 6. I know it was around kindergarten, like kindergarten age, 5 or 6. Which would literally be 19. I was born in 91, so it would be 1996, the year it came out itself. And yeah, no, it's I know how this goes. I'll wait till you ask the rest of the question.
Right. Yeah, because the next question. It's a movie that very special to you, obviously. But do you remember who you were with the first time that you had seen it?
Oh, okay, so this is I love telling this story. I've told it a million times on the podcast, and I will tell it a million times more. So. Me and my mom and my dad, we went to a gas station, and you're old enough, and this makes us sound like so old, but I don't care. I love leaning into this. Remember when gas stations used to have like movies you could rent? Mm-hmm. Like just,
and you didn't even have it had the case, and you just had a little tag you took off of the case and took up to the cashier.
So we were at this gas station in a town called Lost Nation, of all places. And my mom, we were looking for a movie to watch, and my mom was like, oh, so, hey, there's this Tremors movie. It's got Kevin Bacon in it. And I was 5, so I had no idea. And it was like, okay, we'll take that home or whatever. And it was Tremors 2, Aftershocks. And if you know that movie, Kevin Bacon is not in it, which is not. No, he's not. And my mom was like, "Oh, this movie's got Kevin Bacon in it, and I love Kevin Bacon. Let's go home and like watch it or whatever." And it did not. And we popped it in, and I'm pretty sure because there's the trailer before the movie for Tremors that actually had Kevin Bacon in it. So I think my mom had to just like, oh, this is not the right movie, and kind of like checked out moment. And I'm not sure where my dad was at that. I think he just kind of was like, okay, I don't know what this is either. We'll just like go along for the ride. But I was absolutely enthralled by this movie. Like those two, like I think they were still in the living room, like they didn't leave, but they were just like, okay, whatever, this wasn't the movie we expected, like just go with it. And I was like, but are you not watching this amazing film? This is the best thing ever. And that's where coming onto this, I was like, had I ever seen anything like that before? Like no. And I can tell you unequivocally now that shaped my taste for the rest of my life. And I don't just mean for Tremors, like that shaped how I feel about movies, about comedies, about music, monsters, and everything, and character. And it was a formative like movie for sure.
And I just picture your mom like, God, I wanted Valentine and I got Grady.
Oh, I know, right? And like I said, I know other people don't, like, they kind of dig on Tremors 2 for not having Kevin Bacon, but I love Grady, man. I had no, like, for me, that was my Valentine. And actually, Earl Bassett's my favorite character in the whole franchise. But it was like, I don't know who's Kevin Bacon. What is this shit? I don't need it. But Mom was like, this isn't Footloose. I'm not into this.
I'm telling you, man, Grady as a kid, I can't tell you how many times me and my cousin Josh, we would just out of nowhere just be like,
it's gonna be big! This is gonna be today! Grady, get your ass down!
Like, me and my cousin Josh used to quote that shit all the time, man. That shit is so fucking gold.
He's such a lovable character, and that's he's a great audience insert. Like, you get that sometimes in a movie where it's like, oh, I can tell you're being meta or whatever, but Grady just like rides that line like perfectly. Where you're like, I'm kind of okay with this. I get what you're doing, and I'm fine. Like, we'd all do it. I know you can. I've talked to Zoran about this too, where it's like, no, that's just like, if I was in a Tremors movie, I'd be Grady. Like,
100% Grady. 100%. And there are so many worse side characters throughout the Tremor franchise than Grady. Like, there's so many, unlikable characters compared to Grady. So I definitely get what you're coming from there. Now, obviously, the big question I always ask everybody, because I feel like it's the most important thing when we talk about your first horror movie, but do you remember which scene it was that affected you the most from Aftershocks?
So, okay. I wrote this when you emailed me it, and I was like, oh my God, this is such a weird back and forth here. But I'll go with the horror one first, and then I'll follow it up with the other one, even though the other one technically comes first. But that it's basically the scene from once the graboid is up out of the ground, and Earl and Grady find it, and then they're waiting, and they crash the truck or whatever, and then it's split open, and like just this horror, like they don't know what's going on up until they go and they see that guy with the truck, and you see his arms. And it's actually a thing that I'll quote. Me and my wife will like quote to each other to this day, where it's a whole new ball game. It's a whole new goddamn ball game. and then all the way up to that point where they actually see the Shrieker for the very first time. It is just like that's where it is a horror movie. Like that bit especially is just like absolute, like, oh my God, this is like terror. This is like scary as hell. But this is where it's important to me, because like the beginning of the movie is so fun and kind of like, rompy. And the other scene that affected me just as equally as the horror was when they're in the refinery, and Earl looks at Kate's butt and is like, that's pretty good. And then he turns around, and then Kate looks at Earl's butt, and it's just like, yeah. And I have to say, I was 5 or 6, so I don't know why that impacted me so much, but just like, oh, equality, yeah, that's all.
I like butts too.
Yeah, butts. Very flat, but like they're not great, but like very flat butts in denim. Woo!
The denim makes them pop.
I mean, I get it. I see the other people's appeal. Like, I'm very straight, but that's just like, I get it.
It's a nice one. So obviously with Tremors, it's a bigger franchise now. I think we have 7 movies at this point, 8 movies.
Technically, there was an 8th movie being made by Bill Watterson this year. The guy who did Dave Made a Maze, and then there's the TV show, and then there's Kevin Bacon's TV pilot too.
Yes.
which was a TV show too. It had about 8 episodes worth.
Right. So of the Tremors franchise, what would you say your favorite one is?
Oh, you just asked this too, just because you said because of the comment. It's Tremors 4, and I know everybody thinks that. Actually, that's not entirely true because Zoran and I talked about it, and he agreed that like it's 2, 4, and 1 are like equal for him. But then there's another guy who's writing another Tremors book, Octavio Lopez San Juan, who's this Spanish guy that I talked to. And he's writing a Tremors book from the perspective of Michael Gross. And he was like, no, Tremors 4 is the best movie. I was like, validation. But 4 is so good. And I'll say, and you're going to like laugh because I did, just so the audience knows, I was listening to a bunch of Ken's videos and stuff today. And he did one on the Tremors franchise. And Tremors 4 was low on the list. It was not last, but it was low. And I understand the reason, because of how slow it is, but that's actually the thing that I love the most about it. Like that's where like Tremors 1, I think as a movie does something very spectacular in terms of other monster movies, where you don't get anything happening for the first 20 minutes. Sure. Like it's great character work, and like you don't even see you don't see a monster or any sign of it for 20 minutes. You get you get Edgar up the pole, you get old Fred in the head, but they think that it's a murderer. You don't think that it's a monster, but there's all of this character and dialogue work that just, it is so slow, and I love it, and that's why I love Tremors 4. Is it just is so slow and different, and I love it for the very reason Ken hates it is the reason I love it. That's why I do the Talking Tremors show. I love like finding like the different opinions on stuff and like what you like, what don't you like, and that all goes into when I make my own Tremors movies. Like, okay, so what's that? They don't like that, but I like that. So what's that like middle bit there that you like you got to play around with, like, because Tremors has always been about playing on the thing before, on the tropes before. Sure. It's an homage to 50s B monster movies. So the more that you do that down the line is just paying homage to the original. So that's my Tremors 4 kicks ass. That's all I gotta say.
See, and I don't hate Tremors 4. Like it's one of those movies that I don't know. I want to like it more than I do. But again, different strokes for different folks. I'm glad there's an audience for it. I would never want a movie to go unloved or unappreciated. So the fact that there's people out there that really love this movie makes me very, very happy. I wish I was one of them. I'm just not. So
like I'm not a fan of 5, 6, and 7, but the people that are, I'm like, great, man. And actually I get a lot of good insight from those people. Like, hey, so why do you like 5, 6, and 7? And I'll always learn something. I'm like, oh, you know what? Okay, I do kind of like that for that reason. Then that's a good reason to love it. So I can't hate things. If someone tries really hard, I said that in another comment, like, this movie is garbage. You missed the rest of your sentence. To you, like, that's very
See, and that is the big thing. Like, just because I don't like something, you'll never hear me say that thing sucks. That's garbage. You know, that's just not who I am. That's not who I want to be. I don't want to, make somebody's art feel less important than someone else's. I think that that's a really, really bad way to look at things. So, another thing about a movie that I think we could both agree on in Tremors 2 is the kills are great. You got a lot of very good kills in this movie. So which kill would you say it was that's your favorite of the film?
It's Julio. When Julio, he's in the window, and that actor sells the hell out of that, man. Yes. Like, there's a palpable and then Helen Shaver does it on the opposite side of just like, oh my god, what the fuck is going on? Like, he is just, that guy is being eaten by a shrieker in that moment, and you feel every ounce of that. And it's really, I was thinking about it because I knew you were gonna ask that question. It's like one of only technically like 3 kills that you actually see in the movie.
Right.
You get the guy on the barrels in the beginning, and then you don't see the kill, but you get Julio with his arms, so it's not really a kill. But then, or Pedro with his arms, but then Julio, he is, that actor, Marcelo Joubert, just gets all the credit for that, man.
Absolutely. And again, like I said, there's a lot of kills in this movie. Most are off screen, or you get the tail end of them. And I think most of the kills, if you count them, would be graboids. There's a lot more graboid kills than humans in this movie.
Oh yeah.
But we talked about the franchise as a whole and what that means to you. But if, as we all know, remakes, requels, sequels, kind of all the rage. Would you like to see a full-on theatrical remake of Tremors done today?
Fuck no. God, no. No. And man, like I love sequels. Man, you want to keep making a sequel? Like, I don't care where you take. Like, he doesn't have to have Burt Gummer in it. I know everybody, and Burt's great. I'm not. Michael Gross is amazing. I'm not denying that. But it's like, if you wanted to go onward and he's not around, I'm okay with that. Well, I'll deal. But to say like, oh yeah, let's make like this perfect movie better again, because I can't. Like I sent you I commented my ranking of like 4 TV show 2 and 1. So 1 isn't even my favorite movie, but I still recognize that like, no, script wise, directing wise, music, effects, that is literally a perfect, like, it is perfection, to do the pun. And like, to anybody being like, oh hey, let's just redo that but with other people as Val and Earl, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. No, please do anything else. Like,
and
no,
I can't imagine the amount of CGI they would use if they did this stuff today. Like, that's what would kill me.
That was why I was fine with the guy who was writing the 8th one, and then it ended up getting canceled, Bill Watterson. If you've never seen Dave Made a Maze, is this all practical movie of cardboard. Like, this guy's inside of a TARDIS, a cardboard TARDIS, basically, of a maze. And I was like, oh, I know he's going to make it practical. But if you're like, CGI is good in sparing uses, and actually Tremors 2 is a great example of like, okay,
yes,
like if they did a perfect remaster, it would be like, let's redo the CGI of those shriekers, because it's not great, but there's still some awesome practical effects. Like, just use it right, use it sparingly. It's not a tool to color everything over. Like, you gotta be kind to it.
I've always said that, practical effects are your main course and CGI is your seasoning. Use your seasoning to spice up your main course a little bit, but don't over season it, because then it's going to taste like shit. So
I love
use your
David
CGI.
Fincher, like the David Fincher thing, where it's like, you shouldn't notice it. Like, the way you can use CGI to touch things up, but you should have that base there that's very practical in the beginning. And that's in the first Tremors movie. There's one, it's a blue screen shot in the basement or whatever, where it's a stunt double of Michael Gross superimposed, and it does look, it's like, oh, okay, but otherwise it's all practical. It's an amazing practical thing. And I gotta shout it out here for anybody who's watching. The guy who made the first 4 Tremors movies, the TV show, and was writing the 5th Tremors movie, the creator of Tremors, Steve S.S. Wilson, has this YouTube documentary series where his dad was on set of the first movie with a home video camera. And he's got this 40-part series of all of these old home videotapes of all the practical effects and everything behind the scenes. And if you want to learn anything about trying to make a practical effect monster movie, that is, go to Tremors: The Lost Tapes on the Real Deal production channel. It is absolutely amazing. Like, practical.
Right. And again, I'll have that linked down in the description for you guys as well, so you can check that out. So we're talking about Tremors 2 and what that movie means to you. But here for a second, Levi, I do want to throw a curveball at you here for a second. My little buddy Ghostface is here. As always, he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Levi? What is your favorite horror movie of all time? Okay.
So I'm going to get this out of the way, because it was really funny that I heard like 4 different people in the episodes that I watched today, The Thing. Like, and I got to agree, man, The Thing is amazing. And I was like, oh, that is my favorite. But I don't want to say that, because it's like everybody else has said it. So I wanted to pick 2 on the opposite ends. The first one would be From Dusk Till Dawn, which is, I mean, I don't want to go spoiler with it, because that is just a fantastic. I love the first half and the second half and the way those mix together. But I really wanted to throw you a curveball by saying that Nope, 2023 Nope is like, I have a new, that is just, if it's not a Tremors movie, that is my new favorite horror movie. And it is, yeah, Jordan Peele knocked it out of the park as far as I'm concerned.
Great film. Stephen Yeun's character throughout that movie is one of my favorite characters of any movie ever. His backstory, everything about him.
He does a great job with his facial expression. Like, there's that, like, before you kind of realize that he's that kid in the beginning, and like he just gets these 1,000-yard stares. And I love there's a bit in it where like OJ is like, oh, I want to like buy back those horses, and he's just like, oh yeah, oh hey, here's this other thing. It's like, just totally sidestepping that, like, oh, you can't because those horses, I fed them to an ale. Oh hey,
Right.
look at that thing over there. He's fantastic. But that
It
whole
is.
and it's one of those things where people ask, oh, is there any like themes of Tremors? And it's like, I mean, besides like maybe repressed homosexuality and giant underground penis worms, but I don't even know if that's real or not. But I love the themes of Nope. I love how that one actually takes its time to tackle that concept of spectacle. And it really, Nope 2023, man. Huge fan.
Very good movie. So, and God, yeah, I love Nope. I could do a whole thing about Nope.
I know. Well, it's funny too because it's sky Tremors. Like you got Jaws in the sea, Tremors on land, and then that sky Tremors. Like indeed,
Right.
It's fucking perfect.
So again, Levi, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with me and talking about Tremors and Tremors 2. But before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. I think I know the answer. I think everybody watching knows the answer, but I gotta ask. What we're gonna do now is rank Tremors 2 Aftershocks on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction. We're not being critics, just strictly on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 extremely effective. What would your ranking be?
11, man, 11. I was thinking about this. I was like, oh no, man. I did. It was like I never really like sat down and thought about what my first horror movie was and like what kind of effect it had on me. But once I was like, nope, it was that one, and there was nothing else. It's like, oh, that explains a lot.
A lot.
And I've already said all the reasons why. There's just no movies like Tremors. I don't know, man. I'm still searching to this day to find more and more of them. But it's just a special. Those first, actually, for me, it's the first 4 in the TV show because those are the ones made by Stampede Entertainment before they got kicked out by Universal. And when those guys were making those Tremors movies, it was magic. It was an absolute like people that knew what they were doing and made something beautiful. And that's what my whole podcast is about.
Right. Well, I mean, and again, I've had an amazing time hanging out with you, but we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, guys, don't forget, I have all of Levi's links down in the description. So make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube, checking out the podcast, and following him on social media to stay up to date on everything he has coming up. Levi, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else,
what these questions are. You keep saying that. I'm like, what are these questions? When you do that at the end of it, I was like, what are these questions going to be? I don't know what they are.
Oh, you're about to find out, though.
I know. I'm excited.
Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps our channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.